Hello, my name is Connor with the Attachment Trauma Treatment Centre for Healing. Today we wanted to talk about stress. We wanted to talk about stress today because the uncertain time that we're all in with COVID-19 is going to affect a lot of us, and a lot of the time it can result in stress. So by becoming aware of the stress that we're experiencing can allow us to take more charge of it and take more control over some of the stresses that may be in our lives. So how does stress enter the mind? The way that stress enters the mind is not as simple as it may seem. We often think of something that stresses us as outside. This is stressing me, which is partly the case, but we've got two things happening here. We have the external stressor, as in this case, with COVID-19, it is the virus. But we've also got the internal, the inside the mind. These two are related, yes, but they can be very different in how they present in stress. So when we're looking at this PowerPoint here, we see the virus and we see it going towards the internal part of the mind. This is a demonstration of how stress can influence us. When it goes inside the mind, it can often be distorted by different mechanisms within our own brain. For example, jumping to conclusions. This is one thing that can happen within our mind. So jumping to conclusions, for example, that could be thinking that, because we're all socially isolating right now, we need to socially distance, this is never going to get better. This is jumping to conclusions. This is maybe a lack of facts, lack of evidence for that. And we're really taking a small piece of information and jumping to a conclusion with that. All or nothing. This is another cognitive distortion. All or nothing is thinking in extremes. This could be hand washing, for example. We forget to wash our hands once and we start to panic. We start to get stressed over that. Because when we think in all or nothing, we often strive for perfection. And it can be a very challenging mindset to be in. When I talk about washing our hands, we may have washed our hands 100 times plus and forgot to do it once. But it's the ones that we forget that we focus on the most that results in this additional stress that becomes internal within the mind. We've also got overgeneralize. This is another way the mind can cognitively distort the information that's coming in. This could be, one thing that goes wrong, we think everything is going to go wrong. An example could be, we're now 2 weeks or so into this self-isolation. This could be, we have one bad day and we think, this is a really bad day. I just cannot self-isolate. We look at that, but we think, well, you've been doing very well for the last, 2 weeks or so. One bad day does not mean everything is bad. So mental filtering, this is our last cognitive distortion that's on this PowerPoint. Please note there are more. These are just 4 main ones that we're going to talk about today. So mental filtering, this is about focusing on the negatives by filtering out the positive experiences. An example of this one could be, the world is falling apart. When we look at that, we can see that it's a very negative statement, a very negative way of thinking. The world is falling apart. That's focusing purely on the negatives without taking in the positive things that are happening in the world. We need to look around and see the many positive things that are happening in the world. Like most things, there's often challenges, negatives, that are also with positives as well. Most things are in a balance. It's about us being able to see both sides and looking at things very objectively. So when we look at this, we have the external outside the mind, and we have the internal inside the mind. And we have these cognitive distortions that can mix up the information, which can be very challenging. So when we look at these cognitive distortions, I want everyone to think, is there any information that our own mind is cognitively distorting? Is the internal stressor the same as the external stressor? Is there anything that's happened in between to change that information? So once we've understood that, the information that we've got inside our mind and how it may have been skewed or changed from, from the mechanisms that we have inside the mind, we can look at stress and we can see, well, what level is it? So this diagram here is a traffic light. You know, as we know with traffic lights, green means go, orange means caution, and red means stop. This is a good metaphor for the mind, and a good metaphor to understand stress as well. Positive stress, this is something we all experience. Positive stress possibly could be some of the general stressors before the virus. Maybe now that some of us aren't working or there's some other challenges that are happening, kids in the house all day, it may move up to tolerable. It may go up that level. This is where we need to be more cautious. We need to be more observant of what's happening here and make sure it doesn't go any higher. If things continue and we struggle to maintain control of our own stressors, if we struggle to maintain control of what's happening within our minds, then it may go up to the toxic level of stress. This is where we just need to stop. This is where things are too much for us. This is when our heart starts to beat too fast. This is when we start to breathe too shallow. This is a toxic level of stress, and it's called toxic because it's not good for our body and it's not good for our minds. So this small PowerPoint is called stress awareness because awareness is key. When we look at things through awareness and we shine the light on these parts of our mind, certain ways that we're thinking, it becomes easier. It becomes easier to manage because we're aware of it. Negativity works best in the dark. If we shine the light on any negativity, then it becomes easier to manage because it's now in the light. So I will leave it there for this brief PowerPoint now about stress awareness. I will encourage you to go into the emotional regulation video that Laurie Gill has made. That is also on the YouTube channel, and you'll also find it on the ATTCH Facebook. So the emotional regulation video is the next step of stress awareness. This is about how we can manage things within our body and within our mind to make things a bit easier while we manage it through this difficult time. Thank you for your time. Take care and all the best.